Hello, Garland Nixon here, and we're going to talk about the Ukraine crisis. And I think we need to kind of dissect this thing, see what the actual problems are here, and see how we can arrive at some kind of an understanding as to the direction this thing is going. Let's talk. Hello, Garland here, and we're going to talk about the Ukraine crisis a bit and where it is right now and why it's how we got here. So let's start with this. I think it's important to understand something. We got to start off with this. If you've been listening to my channel for a while, you know my understanding of the initial understanding of the Ukraine project. Which was, the neocons. This was the initial. I'm going to tell you it's changed. My initial view of it was this. The U.S. neocons were looking at maintaining world hegemony and domination. Basically, the Wolfowitz doctrine. You can look that up, of 2001, I believe it was, in which he argued the United States has to maintain hegemony, has to maintain domination over the planet, and no country can be allowed to rise, particularly in the Eurasian area, but no country, which specifically meant Russia, but no country can be allowed to rise to a level where it could threaten that domination, right? Okay, that's the lens that I saw it through for this reason, because the U.S., I was looking through the lens of a person in the U.S., right? I'm like, okay, the U.S. is writing books. They're writing documents to say they want to take Russia out and how they want to take Russia out and blah, blah, blah. So I'm saying that the Wolfowitz doctrine was not something new. It wasn't that in 2001, the neocons looked up and said, hey, the Soviet Union has fallen, China's still weak, but someone could rise. And if they do rise, we have to stop them. What I, eventually came to a conclusion that basically they were always trying to take out Russia. It was always about world domination. It was the Soviet Union, and then after the Soviet Union, it was Russia. It was the Eurasian landmass is critical in dominating the world, and we need to dominate the Eurasian landmass. So we need to take out Russia, and we need to take over Russia and dominate Russia, dominate China. It was basically a neocon fascist Nazi view that said, in order to rule the world, we've got to take out the potential powerful places, the places that have lots of natural resources, and then we must rule and dominate the world. It was all about ruling and dominating the world. It was pure fascism, right? I'm looking at the Ukraine project through that lens, which was valid from the standpoint of a person who's in the United States. But I didn't really factor in the Europeans as having a vision of their own, which I've come to the conclusion that that's where I missed the boat, right? That's where a lot of us missed the boat. And that is, we saw the US as the master, and we saw the Europeans as vassals and puppets, and we didn't factor in that they did have a vision and concerns of their own, and that could create their own kind of block. Right, this Atlanticist bloc, and this Atlanticist bloc, don't get me wrong, the Atlanticist bloc is very deeply entrenched in the U.S. foreign policy, but it's not the only vision for the world, right? And therefore, what we have is an Atlanticist vision for the world that has, I'll say now, two particular pillars. There are two major pillars. If I say the US version, which is we got to dominate the world no matter what, and to do that, we can take Russia. But in the US vision of the world, in some people's vision from here, taking Russia was never about Russia. It was about going after China. It was about China's the big enchilada. China is the economic threat. China, could rise on its own, of its own merit, and become more powerful than the U.S. because it did everything right. That's irrelevant. But China did everything right. We didn't. They rise above us. That's organic and natural. But because we're knuckle dragging apes, we'll go hit them in the knees and take them out. And we'll dominate them forcibly. We'll use force to dominate them because we cannot allow the market to decide. The entire thing is the entire argument about the market is proven to be a lie. We want the market to decide, okay, well, the market has decided that China has out innovated you, that China has outthought you, outfoxed you, outsmarted you, and they're doing a better job of taking advantage of the market. So therefore, the market says they're going to do better. To which point the U.S. says, oh, well, in that case, we'll take a baseball bat and hit them in the head. Damn that market. We want domination. And if using the market argument will give us domination, then we'll use the market argument. If that doesn't work, we'll take out a baseball bat and hit you over the head with it because we're knuckle dragging apes in the first place. That's the neocons. Ultimately, when it comes down to it, look at Gaza. When it comes down to it, they will talk a good game about liberal democracy. But when it comes down to it, they're pure fascists, and they will use violence to get what they want, to dominate. The only thing they really care about is dominate, and they will not hesitate to use violence to dominate, but they'll pretend as though they're using some intellectual and philosophical view of the world. No, it's not. They will use violence in the end. Okay, let's get back to this how Ukraine fits into this. So what we have is, keep in mind, let me add this. When I say the Atlanticists, I align the Atlanticists with the finance capital, with Wall Street, with the city of London, finance capital, right? That's the Atlanticists are aligned with. The people that have another vision, I think, are more like the industrial capitalists, right? The people who have industry. Now, they may want to take out Russia because they want their natural resources. They want to take out China because China is an industrial competitor, right? So China is a bigger threat to them because it's an industrial competitor. So the finance capitalists, I felt for a long time, they want to focus on Russia and get their hands on all of those lovely natural resources that they can take out loans against and stuff like that and sell bonds on and all. Whereas the industrial capitalists, like China has big industry. Oh my gosh, we can't, we need to control that or get rid of it. Anyway, so, but where do the Europeans fit as we near a crisis point in Ukraine? And why are they so desperate? Here's what I think. They do have their own view and their own vision, and it is the Atlanticist, it is the finance capital view, the ones that have said we have financialized our economies. A financialized economy actually runs off two things: magic, hope, three things: magic, hope, and debt, right? It is, we're going to create asset-backed securities, derivatives, whatever the hell, so complicated that we don't, when it comes down to it, we really don't fully understand them, but we'll get, as long as we can convince some schleps to buy them, we'll sell them. And then there'll be dozens of trillions of dollars of these things out there. We don't really understand them, but they're out there and we're making money and we got people convinced to buy them. So we're rich. That's number one with finance capital. And I think that's their thing. They don't, when you have finance capital, you don't need to produce things. You don't worry about produce things. You don't worry about commodities. Oil is a commodity in the real world. Oil is it's a kinetic commodity. You can burn it and do things with it, right? Lubes that you need for machinery, the aluminum that's produced, the actual things that are produced in the real world come from commodities. So China and Russia are the perfect reality for the industrialist. The commodity, the industry, that's reality. For the industrialist, the industry is the biggest threat first, but then you have to come back and take out the commodity people, because once you got the industrial power, you gotta feed it, right? So they'd be just as happy to drop the Russian crap and go after China first. That's all we're really talking about. We're talking about a bunch of fascists, and their decision is who to go after first. Do we go after the commodities first? Do we go after the industries first? They're fascists either way, right? Which of course means what? That the industrial powers and the commodity powers most naturally align and say, well, if you're trying to kill us both, you're trying to eat us both, we got to come together, right? Okay, let's go one more level deep on this before we get to the business about the actual crisis point. We'll go one more level deep. And this is the next level. How do you view what used to be called third world, what now would be called the developing world? And even that's important, right? Under the old system, the third world Basically, they're third world powers, right? What that meant was that not developing. Developing implies they're improving, that their lot in life is improving, right? Third world implies they'll never be. We're first world, they're third world, not even second world. If you think about that, think about this. We never really in the West came up with a definition for a second world power, did we? We said we're first world powers. We're what did they use? Industrialized power. Basically, what they meant was we're civilized. They're third world, meaning we don't even need a second. They're below second. They're just impoverished people. That's organic. That's their lot in life. They're inferior to us. Their culture's inferior. Their education's inferior. Intellectually, they're inferior. Everything's inferior about them. And their lot organically is to be below us. That was the argument. But why was that argument? Why wouldn't you call them developing? Because you didn't want them to develop. Because the way you made money off of them was two things. Number one, you maintain puppet governments there. If they got a government that they like, you kill them, overthrow them, and put a fascist puppet in because you wanted to extract their natural resources as cheaply as possible. Number one. That was the first thing when we were still industrial powers. But then that changed. And how did that change? When we were no longer industrial powers, when we decided to deindustrialize, and even before then, but the principle even more so once we deindustrialized, there became another plan for these third world powers. Lend them money. The IMF, the World Bank. You now go into some African country, and this is what you do with any third world country. You go into the country. Number one, you get a compliant puppet in charge and a puppet government. Number two, you say, we need to help your government by giving you loans. Why? Because a financialized company makes money off of debt. It makes money off of loans. That's how it makes money. It puts people in debt. It puts countries in debt. So now you put a puppet government in there. If you're not going to extract their bananas or aluminum, you're still going to do some level of that. But the main thing you want to do is give them a big IMF loan. And you say to them, we want you to take this loan and we want you to rebuild your country. But you don't really want them to rebuild their country, because if they rebuild their country, they won't be third world anymore, right? So you got a puppet government in there. You lend them $1 billion or $2 and you ensure that the people who run the government steal a lot of it, because you don't want it to be used to develop the country, because that's a problem for you. You don't want the country developed. They'd be a developing country, wouldn't they? They wouldn't be a third world country. They'd be a developing country, right? You make sure a lot of it gets stolen, and then you make sure they so-called invest it back into American countries. So what do I do? I go to your poor little African or South American country. I lend you $2 billion. And I say to you, to government, take this $2 billion. Now you're plowing along doing whatever you're doing, but you're not in debt. You may be a poor country, but you're not in debt. I put a puppet government in. I say, now, guess what? I'm going to lend you $2 billion. I'm just throwing out a number, right? I make sure a lot of it gets stolen by you, and then I make sure a lot of it gets stolen by me. I say, why don't you bring all these new great projects you're going to do in your poor little African country? Why don't you use American companies? American companies go in, they take gigantic sums of money, and they don't really do anything. They do a few little projects. Basically, the money is embezzled through the hands of the puppet governments into American corporations. As an example, Burkina Faso now, Ibrahim Traore, the leader of Burkina Faso, now said we're building our own roads. Why did he say we're building our own roads? Because he looked into it and he found out that French companies were building their roads. They were charging 5 times more than it would cost him to build a road. Why were they doing that? Because that's the way it worked. Whatever little money that Burkina Faso had left, France would extort it sending their corporations in there to extort the money out from crooked leaders. And so the bottom line is, what ended up happening? The IMF, World Bank, whoever goes into Burkina Faso and lends them $5 billion. I'm just using that as an example. Whatever country lends them $5 billion. What happens? The crooked leaders steal $250 million. French companies then go in and overcharge and do everything they can to get all of the money out, and the rest of the money goes back to French companies. Now, France or whatever lent them the money. It comes back to French companies. A piece of it gets stolen by the leaders, enough to keep them happy and in office. And now, but here's the other problem. The country, Burkina Faso, now owes the IMF or the French bank, whoever, the $2 billion. And now they got you in debt, and now they can control you. Now what do? They come in and say, well, your ports, your whatever, your mines, your this, your that, we're going to take control of all of that since you can't pay us. We're going to have to take some of your assets. And that was all written into the loan in the first place, that if you can't pay, we take your assets. Well, they knew you weren't going to pay because they were going to embezzle all the money back. And then when you couldn't pay, they were going to come in and seize your assets. So they send you a big loan and they seize your assets. So you were a third world power and you were kept a third world power. And of course, these Western banks kept you in debt. And whatever money you did make, they had made you pay it off of them, pay it back to them. And you never, ever got caught up in the payments, right? So it was a scam system wherein the third world countries, which are now called the developing countries, which some of us call the global south companies, all the same countries, the same thing, were constantly kept in debt. First, you take all of their bananas or with coffee or whatever the hell they got, and or you keep them in debt with gigantic loans, right? And the city of London and France and Germany, and that's what they're doing. Germany and the Congo, France and Sahel, all over the place. British, all over the place. That's what they're doing, right? They're cleaning out of Africa, keeping them in debt. You're a financialized country. Remember, when you're an industrialized country, you want to extract their resources at next to nothing. In fact, here's a perfect example. When France couldn't use the resources, what did they do? They got uranium from Niger, as an example, or Burkina Faso. They paid Burkina Faso pennies on a dollar. They paid them $2.50. They sold it for $250, right? So even though when they didn't need the things, the raw materials, they just took it out, sold it for nothing, and sold it at a higher price so they could still make money. The bottom line, the country stayed poor, and they pretended as though these countries were poor because they were inferior countries when they were poor because they were being robbed. My point being this, there's a point to all of this, getting back to the Ukraine crisis. My point being that what we're looking at is a Europe that does, in fact, have a dog in this fight. And here's what I mean. As these same European countries start to lose control of their African, South American, Asian assets, countries that they can embezzle all the money from the country. They can rob the country blind. They can keep the country in debt. Bad things are happening. Bad, horrible things for them. Russia and China are going into the third world, and they're saying these are developing countries. Why? If you are a financialized country, you make money off of debt. You want to keep these countries in debt, countries in debt to you, and you can steal what you can, and you can utilize that debt. If you're a commodity-based country, right? If you're Russia, you want those countries to have as much money as possible, and you want them to have industry, and you want them to have everything. Why? Because then they're buying raw materials from you. And how do you make money? Raw materials. You don't make money in debt. You want to sell them oil, you want to sell them gas, you want to sell them wheat, you want to sell them aluminum, you want to sell them all the many things that you have, because you're Russia. You got them all, and you ain't going to run out no time soon. Timber, anything they need. So you want the African, the South American, the Asian country, you want them to develop, and you want them not to be bound up in Western debt because they can buy commodities from you. Now, if you're China, what do you want these? You don't want them to be third world countries. You want them to be developing countries. Why? Because you sell widgets. Guess what? If this African country is no longer in debt and it's building things, it's going to buy a lot of things from you. It needs stuff from you. Even if it wants to build factories, it's going to buy the stuff for the factories from you. It's going to have the expertise from you. Hey, China, can you come in? We'd like to build a factory to build widgets. And what does China say? We're on the way. You make money building the factory, then you sell them the parts and the raw materials to build widgets. And then Russia says, oh, by the way, you're going to need some more raw materials, and you're probably going to need some gas and oil to run those widget factories, aren't you? We got you covered. So my point being, we're talking about a battle between two entirely different economic systems here. It's always about money. And that is an economic system that makes money by extracting the wealth of the global South countries. We're going to steal their stuff, right? And we're going to sell it at a higher price. We're going to keep them in debt. We're going to make money off their debt, and that's going to allow us to seize their assets. We're making money off of your little country, off of debt. versus another system that makes money by that country developing and growing. That country develops and grows. They buy my gas, they buy my oil, coal, my timber, and they produce widgets aligned with that guy. And as the people have more money and more jobs, they can buy stuff from China. Guess what they can buy now? They can buy sneakers. They can buy, China makes sneakers. They can buy household items. They can buy tables and chairs. They can buy anything they want to buy because China makes it all. So Russia and China benefits if that African country develops. That's why the term developing countries, as opposed to third world countries. You benefit if that country stays poor and you keep them poor and you keep them in debt and you make money off of that debt. So ultimately, let's get back to the Ukraine conflict and let's get back to Europe's vision of the Ukraine conflict. Europe's losing those countries. It's losing the third world countries. The third world countries are becoming developing countries thanks to China and Russia. You got a problem. In fact, Macron is now beefing at China, saying we need to build NATO in the China's area. Well, first of all, NATO is so weak. I mean, it can't do anything, right? But you know that they don't know. They haven't figured that out. Anyway, he's threatening China. We're going to have NATO in China, right? In the Asian area. They've been doing that for a while. I also think that's, you know, another way to try to keep the Americans happy. But anyway, let me continue. So from the Europeans' plan, from the Americans' vision of the Ukraine project was this. Let's compare visions. The American vision of the Ukraine project was we want to rule the world. And therefore, we got to get that Eurasian landmass. And then we're going to break Russia up, and then we're going to use that broken up Russia and our control of those natural resources to take China down, and then we'll control China. We'll strangle China. We'll control them, right? So this is about world hegemony. And just think about that. You got Russia. You can control so many commodity markets. You can control the oil market, the gas market, all the commodity markets you control. Take Russia out. It is critical for finance capital. And then, boom, we take Russia out. China's a gravy. China's a piece of cake at that point, right? We got these gigantic markets. We got Europe. We got everything. Now China's got to do what we says to do. And Russia and China are no longer in Africa building nuclear power plants and ports and railway stations. So guess what? We now keep them as the third world. And we got everything made. We just got to take out Russia first and China second. That's what the neocons from here are looking. The Europeans are even far more desperate, because even if we don't rule the world, here's what I'd say about the U.S. Here's the truth about it. Russia and the U.S. can do something. Canada can do that. What can they do? They can grow their own food and they can produce energy, their own energy. If you can do those things, you can probably make it. Now, depending upon where you are, you may need a strong military. But the truth for the U.S. is, as they say about the U.S. has it says it has nominal powers to the north and south, and fish to the east and west. We're so far away. The odds of somebody attacking the United States are so low that we don't even need a strong defensive military. But we could have here's the truth. The U.S. could have a strong defensive military. The U.S. could have, we wouldn't be happy, but we could create our own, we could come up with our own energy, our own commodities, grow our own food, and we could make it. We could make it. Europe doesn't have that luxury. They don't have their own energy to speak of. They can't grow their own food to speak of. Not in the ways that the U.S. or say a Russia can, or even a Canada, right? So what do they have to look at? The Europeans are saying we're losing Asia, our Pacific islands, Caribbean islands, Africa, all Middle East. We're losing all of our colonies and our colonial economic input. We're screwed. We're done. We're in desperation. We got one hope. If we work with the United States to take out Russia, we already know that Russia is going to be split into like a minimum of 3 pieces. They talked about splitting Russia into pieces. In fact, the Europeans have even had various and sundry meetings and written documents and everything about splitting Russia up. Why is that? Because they want their cut, right? We rob a bank, and you and I and 2 other people rob a bank. Well, we got to split the money 4 ways. Now, what do we know? The guy who put the bank together, put the robbery together and everything, he might get 40% for him, right? And then the other three people involved get 20 each. We make that deal beforehand. You're putting the thing together, the whole bank robbery together. You get 40%. The rest of us get 20 each. We've made a deal, right? They already know. We take out Russia. Okay, the United States, we're going to split. Why are they saying we'll split it? And they're already talking about how they're going to split it. Kaja Kallas. Oh, yes, we'll split Russia into X amount of pieces. Why? Because they're already rubbing their hands together about who gets what. We get this piece. That piece has oil in this. Yeah, well, we get this piece. That piece has aluminum in this kind of mines. Yeah, well, we get that piece, right? In losing their colonial economic input, their only hope is to get a new colonial economic input, and that's take Russia out. And now we can survive again. Now we're France, we're Germany, we're whatever. We lost the Congo, we lost the Sahel, we lost, you know what I mean, region of Africa. We lost all of these things. That was all of our money. Okay, now we got a piece of Russia. All right, we can continue and go forward. That's what that was about. And they don't have another option. The Europeans don't have another option. So now understand this. The United States empire, they got their option is, well, first we'll take out Russia and then we'll go to China. And they're like, oh, crap, that didn't work. Well, maybe we'll start with China and go to Russia then, right? It's all absurd and preposterous and insane. But the point is, at least they're thinking they have another option. The Europeans are like, we can't do that. First of all, if we go after China, that's going to destroy what little we have left. Second, so that don't work real well for us. Secondly, we got to have those natural resources from Russia because we're losing everything else. So in reality, the Europeans are more desperate for the Ukraine project than the Americans are. The Americans can afford to go elsewhere first. The Europeans can't. If they don't get a piece of, if they don't break Russia up and get their fair share of the loot from the criminal act, they collapse. And they are close to collapse now. And if you're a leader in Europe and you know history, you could be concerned that you'll get your head cut off. And I'm a person who's predicting at some point there will be violence in Europe when the people wake up and say, my God, what have these people done to us? Our country's shot. We're done. We're poor. I've also predicted that, and I believe this, the time will come. They're like, we don't want all of these immigrants from Middle East and Africa. Guess what? They're going to wake up one day and like immigrants from Burkina Faso are going to say, hey, it's hell here. Bunch of friggin' trash, garbage all over the place. And hey, they got jobs in Burkina Faso. I'm going back. Time's going to come when they're going to leave. You ain't going to have to worry about those immigrants. The time will come when those immigrants will leave and go back to the developing nations. They're going to be calling developing nations, and they're going to be calling Europe a shanty town ridden hellhole. And it's bad because the Europeans are actually now literally looking at Russians and Chinese, and they're like, oh shit, these people are living better than we are. That's not supposed to happen. Well, it's going to get a whole lot better before it gets worse for the Russians and the Europeans. I mean, for the Russians and the Chinese than the Europeans. But so let's go back. So let's get to where we are. Okay. So that's a setup. That's for God's sake, almost a half-hour setup. But I think it was important to talk like that. So somebody could say, are the Europeans crazy? Why won't they listen to the Americans? This is not madness. It's desperation. It's a different kind of desperation. It is a different vision of the Ukraine project, different from the US, different outcomes they're seeking. Okay, so where are we now? Here's the problem that the NATO people have. And it comes back to this. Their original plan failed. And they didn't have a second plan. And that's now bearing itself out. Here's what I mean. Initially, the plan was simple. We'll get the war started. Right? Number one. Then number two, right? It was simple. 1, 2, 3. 1, we get the war started. 2, we put 1 million sanctions on Russia. 3, the Russian people get upset because their economy had collapsed. They pounce on the Putin government. They overthrow them. And then we put in a compliant Atlanticist, right? Boom. 1, 2, 3. And what happens then? We split it up and we all get our fair share. We break Russia up into pieces, regions, and everybody gets their fair share. Now, the U.S. wants to take out China. Great. We take out China, Russia's going to give us our, the U.S. is going to give us our fair share of that too, right? And we're back on top, and we back, and all our colonies in Africa and Asia and South America all have to fall in line, and we rule the world. Isn't this great, right? Bing! It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. Well, because they only see through the lens through financialization, their plan to take out Russia would only work for a financialized economy, but they only saw Russia through the lens of financialization. So when they did all of this stuff, they said, ha, 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 and nobody will buy anything from Russia because we'll go after them. And they didn't realize this. India and China is too big for that. So India and China said, hey, no, we're going to keep buying stuff from them. And then a lot of other countries says, yeah, so are we too. And you're put in a position, what are you going to do? Sanction everybody in the world? Lindsey Graham saying they want to do it now. But if you sanction everybody, you sanction no one. At some point, you just become the odd man out. So can we sanction everybody? Then where do you go? Then we're like, hey, we'll fix you. What is that? We're not going to do business with anybody in the world. How do we survive if we're not going to do business with Russia and China and India? We're not going to do business with Iran. We're not. And now, what about all of the Gulf states, UAE, on and on, all the Gulf states would now say, well, they're all sanctioned 500%. Now, all throughout South America, guess what? They're still going to do business with Russia. So what are we going to say to them? All the BRICS nations, we're not doing business with any of you. None of you can buy or sell from buy from us. We won't sell to you. And they're going to go, okay, well, we'll just buy and sell with each other. All what we'll do is sanction ourselves right out of the economy. That's our plan, to sanction ourselves right out of the world economy. The world economy is going to be okay, but we'll collapse. You want to talk about empty shelves? You will have empty pockets, empty jobs, empty everything. So that's not a real option. But at any rate, where we are now is this. At any rate, when we look at it, this war, it's a war. The minute those sanctions failed, we had lost, because we didn't have a backup plan. So then we kept trying to drag it out. Now the Europeans got to keep dragging it out because of the desperation. They're like, oh my God, what do we do otherwise? We don't have a backup plan. We got to hold on to this one. We're, as Jody Barr says, damned if we do and damned if we don't. If we hold on to it, everything's going bad. If we don't, everything goes bad. And people are going to come at us and say, what the hell did you make us, our whole economic bloc throughout Europe, suffer for, telling us that we had to, that Putin was going to come after us. Now the war's over and he ain't coming after us. I thought you said he was going to come after us. He's not coming after us. What was all this war, all this for? They got they got political problems. There's a political price to pay. So they're horrified. And I add one thing, and I will add this from the beginning. The Kiev regime's got a lot of dirt on the Biden administration. They got a lot of dirt on Macron and Starmer and or some of these other people. They got a lot on them. A lot of stuff that they did, a lot of stuff that they've been involved with, a lot of criminal activity and money laundering. They can't afford for the Kiev regime to fall and for the Russians to come in, because they know good and damn well that the people in the Kiev regime and all throughout that area and all the people who've made money are a bunch of freaking crooks, and they have no allegiance to anybody. And if the Russians come to power, that they're going to say to the Russians, now that you're in power, we want to be friends with you and we're willing to sell you some info. We're willing to bargain. We got info on Macron, on Starmer, on this, on that. We got pictures of them doing coke. We got pictures of them. God only knows who, what sex, gay sex, any kind of thing you can think. What other kind of dirt they got on them. We got telephone conversations recorded where they said this and that. Biden said this. Blinken said this. They got video. They got audio. They got documents. They got everything they need to embarrass, humiliate, and destroy. No shortage of Western politicians. See, that's the big horror they've got. Look, whatever was going on the old cocaine train, rest be assured that the people in Kiev know all about it and we're a part of it. Whatever the hell's going on with Keir Starmer, and that is, some toy boy, rent boys. I didn't even get into that, but some things going on there. And some people, let me say this. Let me get one thing about that before we move on. These Ukrainian escorts, male escorts, who apparently burned some residences or some properties, maybe some vehicles, things like that owned by Starmer. And you ask, how did they know? Let me tell you what that is. And I'll go back to my law enforcement days and my days of teaching teaching criminal justice. I taught organized crime. I taught organized crime. Let me tell you what that smells like to me. A warning shot. It smells like a warning shot. And when I mean smells, I mean my professional intuition from that field. It's a warning shot. It smells like this. You better do what we want or else. They didn't come out and do anything. They didn't come out and hurt him. They didn't have to come out and threaten him. There's something some fear, like maybe Starmer may go along with Trump and say, okay, or Trump, he may make some kind of deal or say, I'm all right making a deal, whatever. But a warning shot was fired. And the warning shot was, we're going to burn a couple of your cars and a couple of your residents, and we're going to use a couple of your toy boys. We just want you to know we did that. We just want you to know. Just think about it. Be a shame if some of the things that you were involved in got out, wouldn't it? It'd be terrible. Would be very destructive and humiliating for you, wouldn't it? So I'm just saying, a couple of male escorts did a little attack on some of your properties and some of your cars. Just keep it in mind, bad things can happen. You could get really, really high. That's kind of embarrassing, isn't it? It could get a whole lot more embarrassing than that. So remember that when you're talking to Trump or when you're talking to the Russians or whoever the hell you're talking about, just remember, we'd hate to see the wrong thing come out. Have a nice day. That's what it smells like to me, like somebody he's involved with, some powerful people. Look, let's face it, if I don't know, Starmer was involved in some miscreant activity with some Ukrainian male models, which wouldn't shock me at all looking at this guy. Not that I'm judging. I'm just saying I wouldn't be shocked. And he hangs around Macron. Not that I'm judging. I'm just saying there have been a lot of questions about some of these people in certain areas, and it wouldn't shock me if Starmer had at some point some kind of economic relationship with these male escorts. I'm just going to say. So I think a warning shot was fired, a reminder, shall we say, an elbow, wham. Just wanted to let you know, Starmer. Have a nice day. Things go bad. You start acting the way we don't like. Hate to see documents released, video released, audio released of you in a compromising situation because we got it. That's what I think that those fires were. I suspect those fires were somebody throwing an elbow, throwing a little reminder out to old Keir Starmer that he is compromised and he could go bad for it. All right, let me continue. So we're at a crisis point. And the crisis point is this. And I'm watching, as much as I can. And, people have been for every month, every day, and I've been as guilty as anybody, guilty as charged. It's the Russians are starting their next offensive, and within hours, the Kiev regime will collapse. Okay. And I've been as guilty as anybody, me and Scott trying to predict it, other people trying to predict it. Well, you know what? Who the hell knows? But something's going on. There appears to be, we know the Russians have a lot. We are led to believe the Russians have a significant amount of troops in the reserves that are prepared to strike if that is their plan. We are now seeing a lot of reports that the Russians are increasing the intensity of their attacks in various locations along the contact line. It seems that something's going on. I'm not calling it an offensive. I don't know how much they have to increase the intensity of their attacks before it technically reaches the level that we can define it as a offensive. I mean, if somebody's shooting at you, it's always an offensive, right? But I'm saying, at minimum, they're increasing the intensity of their attacks. They seem to have been upping the tempo for some time now, and I'm getting some signals that the tempo is turning up. The last few weeks, what have we been getting from the Russians? Kind of some final warnings. Hey, guys, yeah, just saying, You better start thinking. Odessa, Kharkov, on and on and on. Just think. Hey, you better think about what you're doing, because instead of 4 oblasts or 4 regions, you could be losing 8. Just saying. There's been these not so cryptic warnings from the Russians saying, you know, if you see a deal out there, you better hop on that deal, because if you don't get this deal, may not be any more deals. And who knows, they may be communicating that to the Americans, because we're hearing from Trump, which is interesting. Well, we're getting to the end of our rope. We don't have money. We don't have weapons. We ain't got a damn thing to give. Remember this, as long as it takes. Well, this is as long as it takes for us. As long as it takes for us to be able to handle it. So, yeah, did we make promises to you? Yeah. They made promises to their girlfriend. Oh, we're going to do this for you. I'm going to buy you a Corvette. Okay, great. Can we pick up our Corvette? My new Corvette now? Well, sweetie, I don't really have the money for a Corvette. I know I made that promise and I wanted to buy you a Corvette, but now that we're together and we moved in and you're still hot, don't get me wrong. And I said everything I had to say to get you to move in, but I ain't got no money for a Corvette. But we got all our finances together and we're all tied up together, so it's going to be hard for you to leave me. But I did get you here and I love you, but I can't buy you the Corvette, right? Well, we're going to go as long as it takes. Guess what, Ukraine? You ain't getting no Corvette. They ain't buying you the Corvette. They're really saying, we ain't got the money for the Corvette, Ukraine. Yes. Did we tell you as long as it takes? Yes. And did we mean it when we said it? Well, we did technically, but we're the United States. We never keep our word. You should have known. Hey, don't get mad. You don't want to stoop to our level. That's just who we are. Ask the Iranians, ask the Russians, the Minsk Accords. You were part of it. We were part of it. And we didn't keep our word. If we didn't keep our word with the Russians, you poor saps, and you're looking at us and you're like, ha, 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 we're with the United States. They lied to the Russians and we're part of it. Oh, this is great. But we think they'll keep our word with us. Bad news, guys. You've been snooked. You've been had, took, hoodwinked, bamboozled. They told you as long as it takes. What they meant is as long as we feel like it, and it will go until, look, as long as it takes for Ukraine to break. And Ukraine is breaking, time for us to go, yes, we love you very much. Ooh, things ain't going so well for you. We don't love you as much as we used to. Toodles. We got other things to do. And they're literally saying, we got other things to do, man. We got things in here and there and over there. We got stuff we got to do, man. We got to go wash our car, change our clothes, got to drop out of cleaners. I got stuff to do. I can't sit around with you anymore. Your ass is grass. And Russia is the lawnmower, right? That's a reality. That's what they're saying. And they're saying to the Europeans, we knew you, we dragged you along too, you poor schmucks. But you believed us? You were part of this. There's no honor amongst thieves. You worked with us. We lied to everybody around the world, including Russia and Ukraine. And you thought we wouldn't lie to you. Well, now you learned a valuable lesson. You're officially allies of the United States. You learned a valuable lesson. We lie to everybody, including you. We're going to get out of here. Now, there's Russia over there. Who knows? You don't have any military. You got nothing. You want to go fight Russia with, I don't know, broomsticks maybe, because all your military stuff is gone and you're broke. So, oh, by the way, you can't fight Russia, can you? Well, take a deal with Russia. Oh, wait a minute. You can't do that either, can you? Because you're totally screwed. Oh, well, I think I hear my mother calling me. It's getting dark. Got to go home for dinner. Bye. Out the door they go. They leave you high and dry, and it is a thing of absolute beauty. So here's where we are. We're getting towards the end of this thing. Let's get there. We've built up to it. Let's get there. In reality, what have I been saying now for these 2-3 years? One guy has got capital. He's got asset-backed securities, derivatives, and he's going to send money into Ukraine. The other guy builds artillery, and he's going to throw artillery shells into Ukraine at the enemy. If I got a bet, I'm betting on the artillery. In the same way, if I got a bet, I'm betting on the commodities. I'm betting on industrial powers over the powers that got nothing but loans and magic on Wall Street, City of London, financial tools to make money. I'm betting on the people that got industry and commodities. In a war, you got to bet on the people that got industry and commodities because they got to make stuff. Now, the Ukrainians were created by the US and MI6, you've created these lunatics, these monsters, these Frankensteins. And you know what happens when you create Frankenstein? It comes back and throws you out the castle window, right? They've created these Frankenstein monsters. And now these Frankenstein monsters won't listen. So if you say to them, hey, you need you to take a deal, no, we must continue to fight the Russians. And you know, the Americans, they don't give a shit. Okay, yeah, oh, we're running out. We think you should take the deal. No, we're not going to take the deal. The Americans are like, yeah, all you guys are going to get killed. I think we'll go to lunch. And off they go. That's it. The Americans don't give a crap. Do you recall? You may want to look at a video I did a long time ago, and it was called the Samsonite option. And what did I say? One of these days, when the neocons are done with Ukraine, they will take the Samsonite option. They will pack their bags and walk the hell away. And that's what's coming. They're talking about it now. Well, if there's no Istanbul deal, we're out. We're done. We're 5,000 outie, right? Let's see. I don't know. Can Trump get out? I'm starting to hear other people, even Kellogg and others, start to say, yeah, and one of the things I think is happening here, they're looking into the military inventory, saying, holy crap, we don't have missiles, we don't have artillery shells, we don't have anything. I saw there was a recent article that was out where they basically said the United States really, if it needs to fight, can field 3 to 4. We've got 11 carrier groups that the U.S. can field because of, some of them are old, they need work, they need repair, they need troops, they need, arms, all that stuff, that we can field about 4 at a time. If we go to war, we could put together about 4. Well, bad news, those 4 are going to be sunk in about 4 hours in this day and age if you go to fight a peer competitor. So the U.S. is looking, we're short on everything. We're short on troops, short on arms, short on stuff, and we're throwing our stuff into Ukraine. And I think even the Kellogg's and people of the world are getting to a point where they're like, crap, we got to be reality. We want to continue this thing, but we got to be real. We don't have anything to give the Ukrainians anymore. We have nothing to give them anymore. And did I mention we're broke? Oh, gee, how's the bond market looking these days? Not pretty. Let's see. We're out of stuff and we're broke. Ukraine, and we're giving everything to Israel, which means Ukraine, you ain't even, I don't know if you figured it out, Ukraine, you ain't even on the table anymore. Everything goes to Israel. Their attention, their money, their weapons. Ukraine, you're not even on the table. They can't stand you. You're nothing but a burden now, and you got to go. The bloom is off the rose. You're not the pretty young trophy wife. You're a little old. You got some wrinkles. You put on a few pounds. Sorry. You see what Trump does? That's what Trump does. They get a little old and wrinkly. He gets rid of them, gets a new one. That's the way it works. And then with these rich folks and powerful folks. Guess what, Ukraine? You're a little old and wrinkly, and you gained a few pounds. They never loved you in the first place. They told you they loved you, but they didn't really love you. They told you they were going to buy you a Corvette. They were never going to buy you a Corvette. And now they're like, take the deal, man. That's what Trump really keeps saying to them. Take the deal. We're going to stand up against the Russians. Trump's like, dude, you better take the deal. Now we must fight the Russians. We're not giving up an inch. We're not giving up Crimea. We're taking it back. We're not recognizing anything. And Trump's like, dude, if you knew what I knew, you'd take the deal. Russians will kick your ass. And don't think we're coming to save you. We don't really give a crap about you. Think about this. You were cannon fodder. I mean, you can't come to grips with that, Ukraine. You were always cannon fodder. They were never going to go fight and die for you. They were never going to sacrifice anything for you. You were an expendable asset. That's all you ever were. That's all you ever going to be. And now that asset you're not an asset anymore. You've become a liability. Assets and liabilities. What do we get rid of? A toxic liability. They actually use that term on Wall Street. Toxic assets, liabilities. When a liability gets so bad that you want to unload it, and everybody wants to unload this stock or this liability, it's a toxic liability. You're a toxic liability. They're just throwing money into you. You're a black hole. You're like having an old boat When somebody says, hey, I know a guy that he's like, hey, Garland, somebody wants to sell me. They got a 31 Silverton. It's a 1976. It's got a pair of these big gas engines and blah, dude, don't touch it. He's like, what? But yeah, but I can get a good price. I'm like, do you have any idea how much it's going to cost to maintain that boat? Do you know what happens if one of those engines blows, if transmission, the stuffing boxes got a problem, the leak in the stuff, and on and on and on. I know those boats. They were great new. You don't want to keep putting money in that boat. Don't buy it, right? It's a liability. It's a toxic liability. I'll put it like this. There are people that have the money to maintain that 1979 31-foot Silverton. But my buddy wasn't one of those kind of guys. I'm like, you won't buy that boat. Trust me when I tell you, you don't have the kind of money it'll take to keep that sucker going. And now Ukraine is a 1979 31-foot Silverton. That's what he is. Well, that's what they are. And the U.S. doesn't have the money to keep that boat afloat. And the U.S. is just saying to them, you're a 31-foot Silverton. Sounds good. But you're 1979 with a couple of old engines and God only knows what else. I don't even start looking below the deck. So adios. Do what you got to do. Now, what the hell are the Europeans going to do? They don't have the weapons to send them. They don't have the money to buy the weapons from us. And if they had the money to buy the weapons from us, we don't have the capacity to make the weapons. Ukraine's, I don't know what they're going to do. And the Russians are stepping up. We are at a crisis point. And what are the Europeans going to do? See, the question is when you say what are they going to do, what are their options? Can they join the fight? They don't have the people, and the people don't want to fight Russia. They don't have the political will to do it, the political backing to do it. They don't have the military and economic might to do it. And the Russians are just calling everybody's bluff. The Russians are like, we tried to be the nice guys. Now it's time for us. It's time for Vladimir Putin to go in the closet and Dmitry Medvedev to come out and start and commence to whooping ass. That's where we are. We're at a crisis point. It's decision time. I don't see how Trump stays. He wants out. And what does that mean, though? Last thing, this threat. Well, if it doesn't happen, we're going to throw 1 million sanctions at you. Look what's going on right now with China. Is the U.S. meaning we'll sanction people that buy things from you? Is the U.S. in any position to put massive sanctions on China and India? That would be economic suicide. I don't think Trump's going to do that. I don't think he's going to do it. Would his enemies in the Senate be happy to do it? They damn sure would. Why? Because it would wreck our economy. Well, why would they want to wreck our economy? Because if they wreck our economy, the MAGA people will then be furious at Trump, and you destroy MAGA, and it would, but the MAGA support for Trump would collapse. They could isolate Trump. They see MAGA as the big threat to them. I'm not taking a position on MAGA or anything else. It is what it is. I'm not talking about what I think of MAGA or what I don't. They see MAGA as a threat, and they'd like to sever MAGA from Trump, isolate Trump, take out Trump, and then ignore MAGA. And they think if they just take Trump down, now I don't think it's that easy, because there are there are structural political problems here that they aren't taking into account. But that doesn't mean that they don't want to take out Trump. So would Lindsey Graham be happy to tariff China and India, see the U.S. shelves go empty, see the U.S. economy go into free fall, and see the MAGA people then say, damn you, Trump, you lied to us, you destroyed everything. And then boom, Trump is severed away from MAGA. MAGA starts to collapse and fall apart. And the neocons are sitting happy. So would they be happy to do it if they could? Sure. It would be their way of both internally, of both taking out Trump and taking out what they see as their biggest political movement, really the strongest political movement. The only real political movement in the United States right now is MAGA. The liberals, I don't know what the hell they're doing. And, there's people like me, the lefties, and all of us wandering around aimlessly running off at our yaps on YouTube, but who the hell knows if anybody's even listening? I don't know. So bottom line, their plan is take out MAGA, take out Trump. We can do that by wrecking the economy. So would Trump sign off on that? I don't know. I don't think he would. And see, people are like, well, even if he doesn't, the Senate does it. let's just say, last thing, the Senate puts forward something and says, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do these gigantic gigantic tariffs against um, India and China and all these people for buying stuff with Russia. And okay, and they give it to Trump, and Trump vetoes it. And it comes back to them and say, great, we're going to override it. You got a problem now. Why? Because of the ramifications. Now, Trump has fought it and said, no, I'm not going to do this. This is bad for the economy. And the Senate and the House say, well, we're going to override it. And they override it and they enact it. And the shelves go bare and the economy crashes. And Trump's like, that's why I wouldn't sign it. I tried to stop these crazy people, but they wouldn't listen to me. Now, Trump gets 10 times more powerful than he does. His coalition grows and you take the blame. So would they send something to Trump to say, we're going to do these tariffs on India and China and all of these other people, even though it's going to cause great political damage to us, and then Trump vetoes it? And would they go back and override it? Well, if you're a Republican and you do that, your ass is grass in your next election, because the economy is going to crash and the shelves are going to go empty, and Trump's going to say, see what these people did? I came here and tried to save everything. They did. I told you I tried to stop it. They overrid me, and they overrode my vote. And guess what? This is all on the Senate. Those 72 or 81 senators or whatever that Lindsey Graham claims he has, and they wrecked the economy, and Trump tried to stop them. Boy, what an interesting dynamic. So I don't know. We shall see. Bottom line is, that's my thoughts. Right now, I ended by saying the crisis point of this is that, kinetically speaking, the Russians seem to be making their move. And it seems to me that over the course of the summer, maybe sooner rather than later, we'll see the outcome in Ukraine. And as I've said, I don't think the United States will act. I don't think it really can. I think they're trying to take their hands off of it. The Europeans are in no position to act. And Ukraine is just, their fate will be left to the Russians, and the Russians ain't going to be kind. Thank you very much. I saw somebody say Garland is not making sense. Think about this. I'll comment on that before I leave. Somebody said Garland is not making sense. I'll put it to you like this. If I spoke to you in, I don't know, some Norwegian language, and you didn't understand it, you'd say Garland's not making sense. It's not because Garland's not making sense. It's because you don't understand what he's saying. So the person that says Garland is not making sense, let me find it. I want to find that. I don't find it. There we go. Garland is not making sense, right? I guess that's what he means. Craig Williams, Garland is not making sense. My view of that is this. If I'm saying something that you don't understand, it will appear that it's not making sense. I'm sure there are people who are watching this who would say, well, it makes sense to me. So if it doesn't make sense to you, I understand. It makes sense to me. There are people listening that it makes sense to. But again, it may be sometimes people say things and it goes over our head for one reason or another. It happens to me every day. I'm watching, some real person online who's talking about something. I don't know what the hell they're talking about. I'm like, I might as well be listening to that in Inuit Eskimo language. It makes no sense to me. So I think that's what we're looking at. All right. Thank you very much. Really enjoyed it. Share this on all your social media platforms. Follow me on, the Rumbles and the Rockfishes and the Telegrams of the world. If you can afford it, become a Patreon member. PayPal, if you can donate on PayPal, or you can donate on Buy Me a Coffee. That's always easy. Buy Me a Coffee. Cash App, of course, you just go buy Garland a coffee. $5 each. How much? How many? Whatever. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, a million, whatever you can do. And when you do buy me a coffee, it says, hey, you can be a monthly member, or you can do it one time. So you can do just like the Patreon thing. And of course, my P.O. box, there you go. Actually, you can send snail mail if you want to send a donation. If you want to send just a letter to talk to me, I get those all the time. If you want to send a book or whatever you have, it doesn't matter. Snail mail it, if nothing else. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great day. Most important, listening, I'm like, most important, most important, share this on all your social media platforms. Thanks a lot. At least we have a little bit of fun here, right? I'm out.